I think we're at quorum, so I think we can call to order. I know that Robin is going to be a little late and potentially in the car for some time as she comes back from a work thing. And I know Mary was hoping to join a little bit late as well. But I'm going to pull the agenda up. Never mind the chaos that is my computer. So call to order at 7:01. Any public participation? All right, we have a loaded agenda today. Just so everyone knows, Robin's offered kindly to just listen to the recording for our notes. And so we don't need somebody to sort of cover her in taking notes in this portion of the meeting. Moving on to item 3, approval of the minutes. Robin sent out the minutes from our February 10th meeting. Were there any issues or comments or any feedback that anyone had?
Maya, I had apologies. I had a couple edits that I did not get to Robin in time. I don't know if you want me to review them here.
Yeah, let us know and then I'll make a note.
Okay, so my edits are to my comments on the Gas and Light is advocating for electric based heating systems for both schools. Would need to add in, as this will position the building to be net zero emissions ready, or NZE is the abbreviation. And then in the next sentence, and I did send these to Robin so that she has them, striking the word looking and replacing with working. And then just the final after that sentence is, when that happens, all buildings that are electric will be NZE. So as part of that discussion. And then in the next section where we talked about the warrant articles and sharing the Boston's EV readiness policy, where it says EV ready followed by IE 20 amp plug, ready needs to be striked, and that's actually capable. And then the next where it says EV chargers, adding in level 2. And I did send those to Robin.
Great, thank you. Any other edits? All right, can we get a motion to approve the minutes as edited by Tom Betcher in the comments?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Tom?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Susie?
I'm going to abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Julie?
Yes. Aye.
Melissa?
Yes.
Great, and I think that's, oh, and I'm an aye. You all are so formal today with your eyes. Item 4, Melissa, I'm wondering if we can talk, you can talk a little bit about the May 14th recycling events. First of all, thank you very much for covering me and sort of representing the committee in meeting about the May 14th recycling event. And so can you give us a summary of where we are and maybe what the next steps are?
Yeah, so Julie and I met with Rep. Lipper Garabedian and Steve Mayo and the representative from Green Team Junk Removal, which is the vendor that's going to be at the event. He's also doing an event in Melrose in April. So it's basically a recycling collection event. It's going to be at the high school on May 14th. And I have a list of items that they're collecting. So I think we should get that list out to residents so they can start saving those items. It's mostly furniture and electronics. And both those things have to be in working condition. So they're not just taking broken things. And Julie and I had talked about having a table for ESC there, with maybe some educational materials or whatever we wanted to tell the public about. And I think Black Earth we may be working Black Earth to get a table as well. And I'm not sure who else.
I think they've invited Safe Streets Working Group to have a table as well.
So yeah, we would need somebody to man the ESC table. I'm actually going to be out of town that weekend, so unfortunately I won't be able to be at the event.
In terms of what they're collecting, I know you said it has to be in working order. Is there a sense of what they do with the materials they collect?
I think they're donated, aren't they?
What's that?
Aren't they donated?
I don't know exactly what they do. I could ask Fred, who's the representative, what they do with the items. I don't know a whole lot about his company, but I can ask him.
The Melrose is doing this next month. It'll be interesting to go there and see what it's really all about. That's kind of my plan.
Oh yeah, the other thing was we wanted to do styrofoam cycling. So I think Fred from Green Team Junk was maybe going to save that stuff, or I don't know if we need to contact them.
No, he was going to contact them. We gave him the information, so.
All right, I'll follow up with him. I'll follow up with him, ask him what he does with the materials and ask him about save that stuff.
The other one question I had was around plastic, since we were so successful at collecting plastic bags, whether if they're making those connections, whether there might be an opportunity for that as well.
Well, that was through that Trex program, and I
Right.
don't know if that's still being offered. We have to look into that.
Okay. The other question, Julie, I think when we were initially thinking about like an Earth Day kind of event, we were thinking about trying to connect with the Department of Public Health around, like bike helmets or something like that to sort of promote outdoors or environmental awareness. I don't know if you feel like that's too much for this or whether.
Well, I'll tell you that the Safe Streets Working Group, which is kind of taking up the bike pedestrian stuff, they are planning 3 Sundays over the summer of kind of closing a lot of roads around the lake. And so we're talking about doing the bike helmet fitting and like a kids bike rodeo and other activities around that.
Cool.
We have a meeting on that next week. So I think that will probably cover that.
Okay, great. Other than sort of the Facebook, the reach of the ESC Facebook group and maybe the town Facebook, do you guys have ideas about how else? I mean, we can put it in the item, but how else should we be getting the word out? I don't know if other towns had experiences about what worked well.
Well, I know that Rep. Lipper Garrett has been putting it in her, and I think Julie put it in her newsletter. So
Yeah, I don't
know if it's on the town calendar.
Yeah, we can get Jen McDonald to put it on the town calendar and to put it on their Facebook. And they might even have a spring newsletter coming out. I don't know what the timing is on that.
And is there a DPW newsletter between now and then?
So there's usually one with the April water bills. So I will check in with Jen. I think she had been working on one and the bills will start going out next week. So it'll be perfect timing.
Great.
Great. Any other ideas or questions or thoughts from the committee?
So I guess we just need, if we want to have a table there, we need to plan what we want to have there, what we want to talk about, who's going to be there, that kind of thing.
Well, I'll be there for a little bit of it, so I can take some time.
I'll be there too.
How long is the total event? How much time do we need to cover?
It
Good question.
is 10 to 1.
Yeah. So if everybody like took an hour, it's only 3 hours. And we'll have to kind of figure out what we're gonna say too. Like maybe we can have a proposal for the next meeting. Like a plan.
Yeah.
Plus, we're gonna have new members after today and we can always volunteer them.
That's your initiation.
That's how it works.
You have no idea what the committee is, but you're going to talk to the public.
Exactly.
I mean, we're gonna be talking about public events later on, but I do know that some of the master plan advisory group is working a little bit on sort of planning for green spaces. So that might be, I remember when we first started, we went to the festival on the lake and we had like, maps of Wakefield and sort of engaged people on thinking about what might be possible or what resources or sort of improvements might be appreciated around town. And we had conversations about where water fountains should go or things like, bike racks. So we can think about something like that too. Also sort of thinking about our green spaces a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we could do some sort of activity where we have like a big poster board and people put up like, what initiatives they want and Wakefield, what they love about Wakefield, what they, what kind of issues they're concerned about.
Yeah, we have, I think Maureen has them, but I think we have these like jars and cotton balls and we kind of didn't we do that last time, right? Where we put 5 or 10 things out and people can put a cotton ball and it's just like an informal survey, but the kids love it too.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it's hard to believe that was like 2.5 years ago now that we did that.
I know, it's crazy.
When we were just starting as a committee. So I think it was great. It's also eye-catching. I think it helps increase the awareness a little bit.
Right.
All right. Awesome. And then, yeah, and Tom, maybe I'll connect back with you too around if there's anything that Gas and Light might want to do around energy efficiency. I think is another way to leverage some of just in terms of education or awareness about what's happening in town related to environmental.
Yep, I think they'll be happy to have a table. I think they also rep the big Garrett. Sorry, I can never pronounce it.
Garabedian.
Also reached out to Gas and Light about dehumidifier take back. So I guess at the Melrose one, National Grid is doing that. So I believe that Gas and Light is looking at how that program, who operates that, how, what the mechanisms are there. If it's something else to potentially be on the radar.
Yeah, I don't know. Would that apply to us since we're not National Grid?
Yeah, so that was the reach out to us, and where the last I'd heard we were looking at like who specifically National Grid, because they're not doing it themselves, they're contracting, and if it's something that Gas and Light could sponsor. All
right, well, let us know what you hear. I think having a table either in conjunction with ESC or next to us would be great. All right, so the next topic on our agenda is the discussion of the proposed bylaw changes. And so this is Tom and Julie. I know that there's a little bit of a question mark around the timing of this. And so I think it's worth discussion. And then we can talk about where we are. So, and by the way, welcome to Robin, who has joined us.
Hi, I'm driving still, so I'm gonna be off.
Not a problem at all.
So yeah, so on the EV and PV, you want to start, Tom?
Yeah, if Myra, you want to share or give me share permissions?
I made you a co-host, so you should be good.
All right.
Use your power with wisdom.
I will use my powers for good. All right, can everyone see the share?
Yes.
All right, so first and foremost, we've been working to kind of frame these for Wakefields. We might have run into a snag that was just uncovered recently that we might have to go in front of the permanent building committee in the amount planning board. The amount of time that we have between that and town meeting and submitting these, we may not make most likely won't make the deadline. So this might unfortunately have to go in front of town meeting in the fall and not the spring. With that said, kind of, I know that we sent out the policy overview. We did a bunch of discussion, and I think Melissa, you pointed out the PV ready. We actually do need to change it. So we had initially had kind of two componentry to this was, anything over 10,000 square feet and 10 units to be the 50%, and then anything below the 10,000 square feet, which would be everything else, to be PV ready. And as through some discussion and stuff, we figured we'd reach for the stars and say everything, any new development, 50% of its roof, if it is, PV eligible, should have solar installed. So that's the way that the policy is written. Stuff from, we'd be looking for guidance from this body in terms of, the purpose and intent. We wanted to tie why we're doing this, how it impacts Wakefield, our non-carbon generation targets of 2050, 2040, and 2030. This helps us get there. Also avoids, if we are not on target, there could be non-compliance penalties that we as a community need to pay, either through, our gas and light, or as a fine from the state to the town. So these are all, pieces that we're layering in. Any questions, comments, or anything around the goals of this? We still need to figure out the places in the bylaw that this would go and the mechanics of that, but from a high level concept of the goal that we're trying to achieve is kind of the discussion for tonight.
Yeah, I had sent Myra my comments on this one in the EV
I saw those.
doc. But I think overall we just need to, I'm not sure it should be called PV ready if we're kind of requiring PV install. That's kind of the focus, right? So.
Yep, and that was what I was saying. Like when I had initially put this in, like I said, you had called that out, that we potentially need to change that because we made this even more aggressive than it initially had started out.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're shooting for the stars. That's what we need to do.
And we can also, there can be, there's give here as well. If there's pushback or objections to things, then maybe we do move. It moves from everything, and then there is some sort of a a ready component put back in.
Just to clarify, and I think I just misheard you, Tom. So we were talking about all development over 10,000 feet. We're not talking, I mean, when you say.
So this policy as written, any new development, and new development is defined. So, whether it's a single family home, a multifamily home, a, commercial, small business, any new development, any new structure, placed in town, or built in town, then 50, pursuant to this, 50% of its roof space, would need to have solar installed, is the way that this is written. With there are exemptions, obviously if the building, is not a good candidate for solar, or there are other things around that, then it would be exempt for that. But if the the building is capable of doing solar, then you would have to put 50% of the available roof space, and that calculation, subtracts any mechanicals or whatever is on the roof, would be subtracted from that, but 50% of the available space would need to have solar installed, as part of the construction of the building. And again, this would be for new construction.
So that could mean, like, if we decided we wanted to build a garage in our backyard, that would be new construction, we would need solar panels.
That would not be a new, that would be a renovation in terms of the way that this is new,
Okay.
new buildings for commercial and residential.
Yeah, and the definition, it says significant extensions to existing structures. So we may want to elaborate on that.
Okay.
So what would the process be for someone to request an exemption from this if they didn't qualify for one of the exemptions that's written in? So, I mean, is it something that's specific to this policy, or is it standard to any part of the town code?
So the exemptions are up in here. And as part of, it would be also be part of the, the ZBA, so for any other, you need to apply for some sort of exemption, right? It goes in front of the ZBA. If
so but there's a process for requesting exemption other than what's specified here in section B.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so there would be, and we could explicitly put that in as well. We can,
I don't know that we need to. It just, I mean, that to me gives us more reason to go with the more aggressive framing that you've suggested at the start of this presentation, because the downside of not anticipating something, as long as there's always the avenue for somebody to say, well, here's this thing that is going to cause me extreme problems, there's a way of dealing with that. So which relieves me more comfortable with pushing for making this the standard for as much as possible, because we're not going to unintentionally really cause somebody hardship with this.
Agree. Yeah. And, there's always those things that come up that are not anticipated. So having that way to request that and review it as well.
So now, I mean, from what I understand at the commercial level, we've already hit a parity price point for a lot of types of projects, right? And around solar, and on an individual level, my understanding is that the calculation is a little different in Wakefield because of some of the programs that we don't qualify for, right? So this is kind of the stick approach, which I'm all for, but is there any way in this to also try to get some more movement on the carrot side of this?
So this is, it's for new development. So someone, a developer, or, I guess anyone could be a developer, but you build a new, you buy a piece of property and, destroy the structure that is there and then build a new structure. As part of that, then this would kick in and you would put the solar in. From a program standpoint, today, if you were to, this would not, our current solar rebate program would not cover that. We don't cover new developments in any of the programs at this time, because that cost is borne by the developer. Ultimately that is passed through, right, to the consumer that is purchasing the property. As part of the development, and gets to the carrot is that operationally, the property will be operationally cheaper with the electrical, being produced partially by solar. And then, from a utility standpoint, it would, anything sold back would fall under the policy that the gas and light puts in place for the purchasing of sold back energy produced by solar.
Tom, I have a question. You talk about the carrot and the stick, and on the carrot side, if the cost of installing this and maintaining this, what's the payback period that may entice the developer or the consumer to it's going to be an added cost, and how do you deal with that?
So, I don't know what the payback period is in terms of, I can speak in general, most solar systems are payback in 7 to 10 years. But as part of the reason for this is it's always cheaper to install new during development versus retrofitting. So the cost of installing is going to be slightly cheaper on new construction versus installing, retrofit. You purchase your home and you put that in place. So, maybe you're putting solar in and now you've got to run conduit, your panel isn't sized appropriately, so you've got to resize your panel. All of those things are kind of mitigated as doing this is, out of the gate. And with new construction, and that's kind of the concept of if you were to move to the ready side as well, is what PV ready or EV ready is that conduit, proper sizing the panel for adding these things into the future.
Again, so when you talk about energy conservation and so forth and so on, I don't know what the building codes are and stuff like that, especially for residential. And that's where I'm kind of, focusing on right now. But are there any codes that, they need to be for insulation, for double pane windows, all of the stuff that makes it more expensive, but also gives you a payback in a long term as far as energy use is concerned, and so forth and so on. So if we could somehow position the solar panels and energy and all of that type of stuff in that same light, I think it would be less of a pill to swallow than just say, yeah, you got to do this.
Yeah, and that, kind of where we talked about, the purpose and intent up here. And we can add to that, anything that we want to, if you have suggestions to add to that, we can certainly incorporate those.
And Dan, we're going to talk a little bit later. So many of those building codes were Wakefield adopted when we adopted the stretch code at the last town meeting, or the one before that. They all blend together now. And I think that there's been an update to those that I think Robin will talk to us about in a little bit. And so I think part of that is covered under that stretch code. We do have some basis of that here in terms of energy efficiency requirements and oversight of those energy efficient installments here in Wakefield.
Correct. Yeah. And, I don't know if Dan, if this is kind of what you were alluding to is, we've already put some of that in, we can expand on this. But, it does help, the fossil fuel volatility that we're all experiencing now, and which is also pushing electrical rates up as well. But we've seen natural gas is 30-40% more expensive from this point in time last year. We've seen the perfect storm of marketplace geopolitical forces pushing natural gas prices up to some of the highest numbers we've seen. I've seen in my lifetime of as a consumer.
I have two questions for you, Tom. One is is there concern here, and I don't mean to be a skeptic, but is there concern here that this provides a disincentive for not necessarily developers, but sort of more single family home to build their house in a way that is not conducive to solar? So they would orient their house differently. And as I've learned through listening to Robin and others on the school buildings questions, that there's other benefits to being sort of positioned appropriately for solar beyond the solar panels themselves. And so because you can naturally heat your house through having the sun come in your windows and things like that. That's very not technical description of what the benefit is. Is there concern here that we would disincentivize those factors and overall make houses less efficient?
I don't know if someone would go to those lengths to orient their house in a way that makes it not solar capable. But I guess that could be something someone could do. I think, personally, I think that would be kind of, what is it? Penny wise, pound foolish, because over the long term, of that, of having solar, they will pay for themselves over time, and insulate one from some of the cost of volatility. My own personal experience, my solar panels will be, especially with the acceleration of the electrical rates. I was tracking, a 7-year payback. Now I'm tracking about 6 years and 3 months. If things continue, my panels will be paid off sometime this summer. So, and after that, it's energy is free because now I've paid off that capital asset. And to the point of, if someone is building a new home, if it's kind of the example of you've gone out and, you've put that in a mortgage in some aspects, and the payments are not as upfront as if you were to do this as a retrofit, because you can't take out necessarily a mortgage for the panels. You'd be, taking out some sort of different type of loan product. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
I mean, this is what I was getting at with asking about the sticks and carrots in terms of there's a bit of what we would call a double dividend to the solar panels, not just through the lower cost of electricity that, with these payback periods basically shrinking, but also the double dividend is in the resale value of the home, right? And as the market expects this more and more, and I do think it's a little bit of a shame that here in Wakefield that a few of the incentives that exist in other towns don't exist for us in the same way in terms of retrofitting and some of the financing programs that are not available to us. But I still think the logic of this
do on retrofitting. So you can if you are looking to put panels on your house today, you do get that. We do have an incentive and rebate, and Mass Save also does not. If a developer is developing a new house, right, the Mass Save rebates don't apply there either.
And but To the point of what I was trying to get at is that in terms of what we put in here, I think it's less important for us to focus on what it is we're requiring and more important to focus on what are best practices. Because I actually don't think, I think 10 years from now, nobody's going to do this because it's required. They're going to be doing it because it's what you do. We're already getting more and more to that point. So without having the technical savvy that some of you have regarding this point, though, like, are there parts of this that we would want to tweak from that point of view of guidance? What is best practice? What is best from the town's point of view? I don't think the novel part is in telling folks that you have to do this. I suspect it'll really only have bite for a few years, right? Like, before it's just, why would I stop at 50%, right? Like, and why would I not position, and the cost of natural gas is not going to be lower substantially over the larger arcs of our life. It will go down and it will go up again, right? So the economic logic of this is going to be very compelling. So, are there things that we could and should be saying in terms of setting best practices that aren't already in here?
That's a great point, Sean. I mean, I guess one question I have is, where does this position us? I mean, this is out front, right? And we have been trying to position Wakefield as a leader, but how far out front are we relative to other towns that have a similar policy?
So we'll be pretty far out front, although potentially not for long. Some of the net zero and stretch codes that are coming from the state are going to start requiring some of this as well. So we may be out in front as a leader for a bit of time, but the state is quickly putting these into place as well, because the 2030, 2040, and 2050 are state goals. So in order for the state to make its own goals, these things have to be in place. And to the point of the stick, anecdotally, the utility, not for a small development, but some of these larger developments that have been being built in town, the utility has asked the developers to do some of these things, and the response has been kind of, it's not in code. I'm not required to do it, so I'm not going to, even though it was beneficial to the developer and ultimately the folks that purchased these properties. But the developer didn't go do these things, even when there were some incentives offered by the utility to help out with infrastructure and those types of things. They still didn't go with our recommendation. So kind of this is where some of this is born out of.
Can I suggest something? I mean, given that we are not going to make this town meeting around all the questions of planning and what goes into zoning, there's a new program that I just heard somebody speak on through the Massachusetts Area Planning, MAPC, Planning Commission. Anyway, they've just put out a net zero playbook for municipalities, and it touches upon things like this. And it's kind of like, and when we heard that this may have to go through all these different processes, I was like, we need somebody to help us navigate this. And I think we could bring, a couple things. I think we could show MAPC what we're thinking. And I think they'd be able to say where this stands in terms of the code, how quickly, to Sean's point, like how quickly this is happening regulatorily, market, is going to move market driven wise. But then I also think, so I think that they could give us some guidance on this. I also think we invite them maybe to the next meeting, let them review what we're doing, and let them talk to us about their net zero playbook that has a lot of carrots in it, like as right zoning for some of these things, or not needing as many variances when you're making your buildings net zero, and things that wouldn't so much be a requirement as if you do it, you're going to have an easier way to kind of get through the system. So, and I kind of feel bad saying Tom and I have been working on this, but I just learned of this net zero playbook recently. Well, Melissa was on the call too. And I just started to think maybe like, I think that we could get them to look at what we're doing, come and talk to us about it, and then talk about some of their other ideas in their net zero playbook. And there's a chapter on transportation, and there's a chapter on zero buildings, and a lot of different things. So that would kind of be my suggestion. I mean, we're not going to get this into town meeting for this spring. If we want to take a vote on just concept wise, whether we like it, so that we can keep moving forward, or we can get some, opinions. And there's nothing to stop us from voting this next meeting or a meeting after, which gives us lots of time going into the fall to sit down with planning and to understand it. But that's my suggestion.
I'm on board with that. I guess from concept wise is, does the board here or the committee want to move forward with, kind of at least the first iteration, the kind of requiring all new development to have the fall under the 50%, or dial back a little bit and say at least some sort of threshold, and go back to the ready, and just kind of philosophy, how we wanted to drive this, and then we can move on to the EV one.
I guess my only hesitation is it's not on the solar ready versus solar capable or whatever, the installed. I mean, I guess, and I'm not an affordable housing expert, but I know our community also does have some concerns about affordable housing. And so I want to make sure that we're not closing those doors. And so to me, it's a question of size. But again, I'm not an expert. I was surprised when I heard you say sort of applying to single family homes. But I also, what I hear you saying also is that it doesn't actually add that much to the total cost of building a new house.
It really doesn't. And, one of the things that we batted around, initially when, and I can show you the revision where we had the, kind of the 10,000 square foot cutoff, is, Wakefield has a lot of, I think that there's missed opportunity with single family homes, because, or smaller, townhouses, or, smaller condo complexes. There is a fair amount of that happening in town. It's not just, not just targeting the large, 10 plus units that are also being built.
Yeah, it's purely and this is again an assumption, that a single family home is typically not built by a developer. It's built by a family with potentially with more cost sensitivity.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't have the maybe we can ask someone from town. I would actually say it's potentially not that, you have a developer, while it is bought by a family per se, but a lot of the transactions that happen is a developer buys a piece of land, builds the home, and then sells it to, ultimately the end user of it. But to your point, the cost is still, built in. And
I mean, that's the problem, right? If it's a 10-year payback, then you're front loading all that cost to the purchaser. The developer is going to offload all that cost at once.
Yep. And that, it gets put in like everything else. When you build a home, all of that gets put together, and that's the sale price of the home. And that gets, generally into a mortgage or the cash purchase.
I'm pretty sure if we had MAPC look at this, they could also look at it from an equity in housing. Like if we could get an opinion on an equity in housing, I think that would be really, and we just discovered, I mean, they were just designated. We have 2 environmental justice equity areas here in Wakefield. So we really do need to start looking at those kinds of things as well.
And I would also, advocate for those that in low income, and that fall into that having this put on during the development of, the new construction, versus it probably won't happen after the fact. So if it's already there, and the home is being designated as low income, however that is worked into the development costs of that, it should be done, because low income, I think part of the goal is to continue to drive down the operational costs of that unit. And the solar panels do that, in conjunction with everything else, better insulation, better and building envelope, all of those things tie together, and drive down the operation costs, which ultimately helps someone in a low income situation.
I mean, yeah, it's what dimension of affordability are we looking at, right? If we are talking about a renter in something and a developer with larger, deeper pockets can help do, like, that's very different. We could imagine, and I just don't know, somebody with expertise in this area of affordability and solar, this intersection could probably say, like, is there an exemption we need for a certain size or scale of a single family house where it really makes a difference? But just for context, like, the cost of these new installs is less than the cost of adding a second bathroom or an additional bathroom, right? I mean, we're not, we're talking about things that are modest compared to other types of design decisions being made on the types of houses that are actually being built in Wakefield. So I would love to make sure we're being sensitive to issues of affordability. But I mean, I think the economic logic of this is already very strong and is only getting stronger over the course of implementation. And what are the things that we can do to make sure to be working with those incentives rather than fighting against them, so that this is something that people are doing as a matter of course, and we're making sure Wakefield's a leader instead of creating a situation where lots of people are having problems, Yeah.
I just have to say, Sean, I really appreciate having an economist on our committee. I feel like it's not often, and I just really I appreciate that perspective.
All right.
Well, I think,
go ahead.
I think the bottom line here is it needs and it should be done. Okay. I just would like to see a way that makes it more palatable for single, not for the the big buildings and all that type of stuff, but for single family units and stuff like that, to truly understand why we're doing this, and it is truly for their benefit in the long run. So that's just my input at this point in time. That's how I'm looking at it.
All right. Do we want to move move on to the EV ready code?
Can I just, I don't know whether Robin's still on her cell, but she's going to talk later about stretch code as well, right? Because I think there's going to be some overlap there as well.
Yeah, no, there's definitely overlap coming with both of these, with some of the state stuff.
Hi everyone, I just pulled into the house, so I've been listening. I support single family house new construction. From an affordability standpoint, if you were the one to build it, you're stretching the cost over a 30-year mortgage, or assuming the typical, and you'll get the.
Nope, we just lost you.
She's right. I mean, single families are more likely to be built by the people that are going to live in them.
Right.
I don't know about that. I mean, most single family homes are built by a developer first and then sold to the end user. But regardless of either or, it's still, to Robin's point, it's over a 30-year mortgage, which you can't take out a 30-year mortgage if you do it after the fact as a retrofit.
Well, the other thing is, I believe that the statistics are that most people don't live in a house more than 5 to 7 years. They move.
Yeah. And that goes back to Sean, to Sean's comment that, the cost of that is reflected in the sales price. And I do know the trend, a lot of folks who do install solar and then sell, there is a premium put on that when selling the home, because it's done. And if you're moving into a home that already has it, you don't have to think about it. It's there. You don't have to deal with the actual installing it after the fact. And some folks place a value on that.
All right, I'm cognizant of time. Do we want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about the EV one, and
Yep,
then
I pushed
is
over
the
to
verdict
that.
that we need to vote, or is the verdict that we have the authority that you all need to move forward?
I don't know that there's a vote. I think we circle back and have, MA, this isn't going, I don't think we're getting this in front of town meeting. So, we don't have the deadline pressure that we had before. It's just my opinion. I don't know,
That's what I think. I think we talk about this and we say it's something we want, we have a few questions, and let's get the experts to look at it and maybe tell us what they think.
Great.
So again, with the EV policy, kind of pushed for more than kind of less. So this is, again, for any new development, residential or commercial, to fall under EV ready to be. So there's kind of the definitions. There's 3 definitions. Is EV capable, which is essentially a 20 amp plug that's near the parking. EV installed is you have a level 2 or greater EV charger, or EVSE, which stands for electric vehicle service equipment. And then EV ready is the providing of the conduit, panel sizing, the labeling of all those things, so that the EVSE can be easily installed in the future. Top level, the policy basically states 25% of all parking, so even a single family home, so generally you have 2 spots, 3 spots, and rounded up to the nearest full parking spot. So by code, if you are building a multifamily unit, you have to provide 1.5 parking spots per unit. So if it's 2 units, you're providing 3 spots. 25%, would be rounded up to 1 would be EV installed, which would be a level 2, and then the remaining spots would be made EV ready as part of the policy. One of the things is when you are moving into a larger kind of parking spot, the 25% can be satisfied with a combination of things. So if when you start to get, say, 20 spots, 30 spots, those spots add up to, so if you have 20 spots, you could satisfy those with these alternatives are as well. So let's talk about, like, say, the head of the lake, they have 200 spots. They could cover 24 of those spots by installing a DC fast that's 125 to 150 kW, or 8 with the 50 kW DC fast. This also allows for EV car share. So this is services like Zipcar, that the Zipcar that is at the location is an EV and has a dedicated EV charger that is not counted towards the other spots, or doing something like the electric bike parking as well. As we described in the kind of policy overview here is kind of like having that flexibility and option, and encourages, in certain developments that reduces transportation traffic, and potentially allows folks, if they choose, not to have car ownership, but still have access to fairly easy transportation in that aspect. And again, kind of going for all new, take the single family home. The thought process is having a level 2 in chart installed. So you have once typical single family that has an attached garage. Every day you pull in the garage, you see that level 2 charger there. Just makes it sits there, it's a reminder, and just makes it that much easier to move towards purchasing an electric vehicle as the charger is already installed, versus being having the conduit and stuff ready. You still would have to do that after the fact. So that was high level intention of the policy, and the mechanics of how that's working.
Okay, Tom, so what's the cost of this? So, a 20 amp plug, it's almost negligible. But when you get the dedicated stations and stuff like that, how much does that cost?
So a level 2, for what I have on my house, ranges from $400 to $600 for that. And again, the cost of new construction versus retrofitting, again, this is for only new developments. It is pennies on the dollar for new construction versus retrofits, especially when we start to talk about multifamily units. So we'll take a development that's close to my home. There's that I think it's like 15 or 20 units at the bottom of Richardson Street across from the Galvin Middle School. Somebody that purchases an EV there and wants to install a charger underneath the building where their parking is going to be exponentially expensive for them to do it versus myself in a single family home, because they have to get the conduit from their apartment's electrical box, which those are installed in their apartment, and down to the garage. Whereas during construction, what would end up happening is that there would be a sub panel for each of those apartments installed in the garage and properly installed, and have the capacity in the panels and done, not as a retrofit and just as part of the design of the building and construction of the building. So just an example there. And from a burden, financial burden, this is far less than installing solar panels.
Tom, is there a cost to the utility? I know, like, we bought an electric car under the incentive program, and so the utility gave us our.
No, this would not come through the utility program. This again would be borne by the developer, whoever's building the new building. As part of this, just around the new development and having this policy, there'll be a utility policy on kind of best practices, and we as the board there will start to talk about things like EV rates and different metering and requirements that would all be a technical spec that comes from the utility for the electricians to be following when they connect in. But that's outside of this policy. This is just to say, hey, you're building new construction, your parking has to be either EV installed or EV installed plus EV ready.
Is the EV rate, like in places that have the EV rate, or is it more or less? Is it time of day? How does it?
There's all sorts of different. We haven't put one together yet. Typically, EV rates track time of use and track off peak. So the best time generally on the grid is to charge your vehicle overnight. And again, this is having the home charging, most people want to charge their vehicle at, at their place where they live. And it becomes an equity with multifamily more so than a single family. As a single family, it's fairly easy to install these things. It gets way more complex to retrofit these after the fact, but going back to the time of use rate, generally the best time is overnight. So if you don't have a charger at your place of residence, then you're probably charging somewhere else, and that may not necessarily line up to the EV rate or have an option of an EV rate, and not necessarily be in line with the best practice of the grid.
I really like this policy a lot. I like the optionality in it. And I think you're right. I think it's much better for multifamilies to do it at the get-go.
Yeah, it's installation cost is far cheaper, especially in the multifamily, and it just makes it logistically easier. So if you're thinking about the scenarios of either a condo or apartment, you have to install these things, and this applies for solar as well. So if you want to install solar or an EV, you might have to go through your HOA. You have to have a vote. The installation logistics become more challenging. As a renter, I think it's even harder to get your landlord to potentially do these things. So having it done at time of construction, it's just there, and it becomes an amenity. I actually think I've seen folks starting to look for places that they want to rent, and they're asking for, is there a plug available? Was there level 2 charging? I have an EV. It's kind of in a way like a pet. Some places allow pets, some places don't. So from a developer or a real estate landlord, I think it's an added amenity, and one should be wanting to have that because that attracts folks that have an EV or considering an EV, and it's not a barrier.
I think for both the EV and the solar proposals, we need to be clear like what type of development, as far as like, does it apply to like a gut renovation? Would it apply to the huge development that was done recently with those lofts by the train station? Like, would that apply? Like, that was a huge, it wasn't a new structure, but they just basically built on top of an existing structure and totally gutted it. Would that apply? Like, I think we need to be very specific.
Yep, no, I agree. And my thought would be is those would fall under the policy. Or my hope would be that the things like that would fall under the policy. Well, to your point, not a completely new structure, but significant enough.
Yeah, I mean,
and we do have those definitions
houses,
of what new construction
tons
is.
of houses that have like been gut renovated. Like, that's really one of the main things that's been going on, is gut renovation of existing.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right, Melissa. So we will on.
Yeah,
so I also think this one is great. I mean, my only question is for a single family home having to install a charger for a car that they do not currently own. But I think
again,
that's
this
a
is
minor
new construction. So we're not talking about retro. We're not talking about renovation or existing. Like, we're not saying every home in Wakefield, as of this policy date needs to install this. This is just as, new construction. To Melissa's point, we can start to define that if we want to make this a little bit tighter. These definitions of new construction, single family, multi-residential came from our building inspector. I had asked them to provide how Wakefield views these, and these are the definitions that we have. Certainly we can start to tighten up and put the language in to drive the behavior that we'd like to see.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, the cost is almost negligible on any new construction. You build a house and you're spending tons of money on everything, and you know, $600-800 is really nothing. You know, it's shrubs that go in front of the house, really.
Yeah. You know, because, you know, to your point, Dan, you know, in a larger development, it potentially could be more significant as you start to put in, you know, the DC fast type chargers. But again, those are, you know, much larger developments where you're, you know, starting to talk potentially double-digit millions, maybe triple. So the costs are not negligible. It's a, you know, bigger line item, but it's a much bigger budget as well. And again, I think it's an amenity in my opinion. And at some point, that amenity is actually going to become a requirement in terms of people are going to start demanding these. We see the market moving that way as more and more vehicles become EV. There's going to be more and more demand and pressure to have charging infrastructure in place. And it's not, you know, the charging infrastructure, as we all know, it's not the traditional gas station. We're not building, you know, a centralized gas station. These need to be much more distributed and, you know, ideally at the place of residence or place of work.
All right, well, I want to move us along. I'm cognizant of time. We have a number of other agenda items, but this is really phenomenal. Thank you, Tom and Julie, and I think Melissa has been involved. This is really exceptional work, and I think I'm getting a sense from all that we're excited about it. And so let us know, we'll connect with MAPC and also let us know how the rest of the committee can be helpful.
I'll see if MAPC can come to our next meeting, so we don't lose sight on this.
All right, or I'm happy to follow up too, Julie. I know you got a few things going on.
We'll get it done.
Not trains anymore, though.
No more train horns.
All right, so for item 6 on our agenda, we wanted to talk about, as you all know, we have phenomenal applicants to join our committee. We thought in terms of the process for so the process is that, as everyone knows, town council makes the appointments to all town committees, and I think that is happening in mid-April. Is that right, Julie?
April, I think our next meeting is the 11th, I want to say. Yeah, 10th or 11th.
And so our committee's been asked for recommendations to the town council about who we would like to have nominated of the applicants that we have. So we have 4 spots. There are, that is the 4 initial citizen participants of the committee. Those terms are all up. Mary and Rob have decided not to reapply for appointment. And so you didn't see their applications. Robin and I are also have applied for reappointment. Up to you all in weighing that in the consideration. And then there are 5 other new applicants. And so I sent out the paperwork or the application forms that we got from Sherry Dalton on all of those individuals. What I'd like to propose in terms of process is that you all send me directly your nominations for who you think would be the best fit after our conversation tonight. I know I got a couple already, which is great. Thank you. And I will consolidate and put them together in the recommendation form to the town council. If you would all feel uncomfortable about that, because I'm one of the nominations, I'm happy to work with that too. I think I could call on Melissa or Julie to consolidate those as well. But what we've done in the past is sort of use this opportunity as a committee in a public forum to talk about sort of what it is that we see in the application, in the qualities of the individuals, or sort of in the needs of the committee, about really thinking about what qualities are helpful, or what do we learned about the committee that we think would sort of help people really sort of join and add a lot of value to our committee. And I think we did pretty well last time. It's worked well when Melissa, Sean, and Dan were all appointed. And so I thought we would just try to do that again. I will say from my side, I was phenomenally impressed by the qualifications and the diversity of the applicants. And one thing that I really am happy about, and I big kudos to the town council and to the town for getting sort of newer people to town. You know, I remember, you know, I've lived in town for 15 years or something, but I remember when I was a new resident, I had no idea. I just had no concepts of how to get involved in town. And it took me probably a decade of living here to figure out how to be involved. And so I have, you know, so much respect for those of you who shorten that timeline for people. There's a lot of people who are newer to town who applied, that's really impressive to me. In addition to people who have been here a little bit longer, have different kind of interactions with the town, including the schools. So that was really exciting to me. I don't know if anybody else sort of has done any thinking about, you know, either characteristics or experience, or even sort of the kinds of skills or time or know-how that you feel like the committee is going to need over the next, these are all 3-year appointments. And so really thinking sort of to the future of the committee. And so anyone else have thoughts that they would like to chime in? I'm going to take the agenda down so we can see each other. And I told Tiana did reach out to me and said, could I Tiana is one of our applicants, our community participant. I told her we wouldn't make it awkward. Although, you know, if it does feel awkward, we're not talking about names. We're just sort of thinking about how to, you know, how to get the right people who would feel welcome and contribute to our committee.
I think that it's like when you're trying to read a resume and figure out if somebody is good for the job or not. And it's, you know, it's always difficult, and you never know until they're actually on the job type of thing. And, you know, we don't have a 3-6 month thing where we kick them out and then get somebody else. But part of the problem is you can't talk to the people. Okay, you can just see what they say and so forth and so on, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. But in my perspective, what I look for when you know I need to work with somebody is their dedication, their work ethics, and course experience comes into it, if you know, as well. But you know, I really didn't have any experience in, you know, environmental sustainability as well. And you know, it's just a learning process for me. But again, somebody that can, you know, take a task and just follow it through like a bulldog. And, you know, that's what I consider. Now I've looked at the people, I've read their, you know, their write-ups and their resumes and so forth and so on. And I have in my own mind, you know, a prioritized list of who I'd like to see at that point in time. And that's the best that I can do. And I think it's, you know, I mean, somebody.
Oh, Dan, you went on mute.
Other people will probably have different metrics and stuff like that, but you know, that's where I'm coming from.
That's great, thank you. I will add, in terms of process, I did reach out to all of the applicants that we have. And I think I copied you on all the emails, and I offered you all, I offered your time to if people had any questions or wanted to offer any other intelligence. And I know some people replied. I did get an additional email, I think maybe just to me, from Christina. And then I know that some people reached out directly. And so, you know, to your point, Dan, I think people have different styles, and some people did reach out and have some conversations with people about their, qualifications, interest, and also ask some questions. Tiana and I can tell you, we were on a trip together. We had a lengthy conversation as we were passing through the mountains of Morocco about what it means to be on a committee and the positives and negatives of the committee. And so it was she asked some good questions. So I couldn't.
Well, and I will say, I do think it is helpful when candidates come to meetings. And I know this is not your first meeting, Tiana, just to see how it works. And Melissa did that a lot as well. So just in general, I think it's good for people to see how the committee works.
Myra, I was waiting for how long you'd go until you mentioned your recent trip. So well done. It was just over an hour.
To be fair, I did a lot of the talking. So.
Myra, I want to piggyback on your comments on the range and years of exposure to Wakefield. The form asks how long you've lived here and so forth. And I was excited also that we had the potential of both new residents and folks that have been here a little longer, because hearing why someone moved to Wakefield will help us understand ways to encourage others to move to Wakefield, and then also know if there was something that would have kept them from coming for Wakefield. Like the previous conversation on bylaws, if there was something in the books, would we be keeping folks from coming, and how that would impact like people's decisions to come to town. So, those recent folks looking into it, I thought was really great that we could introduce some newbies and folks that know how things work a little bit, know some people, know who to reach out for resources. That's always helpful.
I just want to echo what Dan was saying, that I think a lot of times background and experience is not as important as like willingness to take on work and work outside the meetings and get things done. I feel like that's a bit more important than, having a special background. So I would just echo that that's more important to me, because that's how you get things done. And willingness to learn how things work and how to get things done.
Yeah, I'll echo that. There's a lot of navigating, at least for me, when starting out, processes that were very unfamiliar and foreign, and how government works. The whole open meeting process, the subcommittee, the working within the it's not working in corporate America, where you can just sometimes bulldog through things. There are processes that we may not necessarily exercise in your day-to-day. So to that point, willing to learn and jump in and navigate those are fairly important in term, as well as the other skills that someone would bring along as well. And passion. I think passion's a big component.
I'm excited that people are excited to join us. I think
Yeah.
I would take all of them. I think we said that last time too.
Well,
that
I think
go wrong.
whoever doesn't get picked by the town council, we need to send out a personal letter and say, please, there's plenty to do here.
Yeah, I would also echo that, nothing precludes someone who isn't part of a committee, that the committees need other folks to help and work alongside of, call it a volunteer corps, across all facets of the town, I think, as well.
We're also going to have a new school committee.
Yes, well, I wanted to say that. So I think, and also as you're thinking about balancing, what's made this committee magical, I'm not ready to say goodbye, Susie. I'm hoping you're joining next meeting so I can fully form my opinions. And then I think Tom too, I think it's a question. I know that Julie, and I hope Julie's gonna stick with us as but I think there is a question, and certainly we'll have a new school committee representative. So I think that's another consideration.
Yeah, I don't know how, my board will vote either. You may have a new gas and light representative.
They'll have to fight me to take it over. Town council.
Don't leave, Julie.
Or you just become part of a public resident that joins us for meetings and helps us.
Exactly. I would
Yeah.
do either way.
Public participation regardless of previous role.
Yeah, I will be sure to mention that as I'm leaving, of making sure that the committee knows that they need to reassign somebody. I unfortunately have, because I haven't been to the last couple of meetings, I haven't really been talking much about kind of what's been going on here. I will make sure that I bring that up at our next meeting. I do think we are talking, I mean, we spent a whole lot of time talking about sustainability in the building with the high school. So it's certainly kind of top of mind in the topic of the high school. But, we've kind of backed off the styrofoam situation at the school, and somebody's going to need to kind of be on the lookout for that when things get a little bit better.
So as you're out there talking to the candidates for school committee, people are going to be asking them about curriculum and masks, but you can ask them about
That's a good idea. Yeah.
It would be nice to know where they stand on things like that. And those are issues in the school.
Yep.
Sean, did you want to say something? I saw you come off mute.
I agree with everything that's been said about soft skills and willingness to do the heavy lifting outside of meetings and everything. It's hard to assess those things from a application form or a resume. I do think the backgrounds are also interesting. So, you never know what background's most useful, but I was really intrigued to see experience with carbon markets, to see a realtor applying, to see somebody with a focus on energy efficiency applying, because I just think like all of those backgrounds have been relevant to conversations that we've had in meetings in the short time that I feel I've been on this committee. So, and a lot of things we're talking about today, like a lot of hypothesizing about the real estate market. So, I just thought those stood out among some of the new applicants as all being of interest. Experience on the board is of high interest as well, keeping continuity, keeping people engaged who, can stay engaged. So, and then we have, I know the subcommittees have been uneven, but, if there's a way to engage people who apply now, who there's not space for in a subcommittee, shy of an appointment, if that's something that could both be a nicer way of saying thank you for applying, and also keep good people in the loop and get to know more about those soft skills. This is off topic a little bit, but I think of it in the same breath. I don't know what the town's viewpoint is on when we'll be going to non-remote meetings, or what the flexibilities are around that, because I feel that hampers my ability to engage with this committee, and I suspect that we'd be accomplishing even more if we're onboarding people in with some in-person meetings in the mix. So I don't know if that impacts the way we approach these decisions as well. But and yes, there's also a question out there if there is some discussion in other fora about what that's looking like over the next 6 months to a year.
It's a very good question. Our goal is that when we do go back, and I think that there are options, there is at least one meeting room in the town hall where we could run a hybrid, or what I was told today in the seminar, we're calling them integrated meetings. So I think to some extent it's up to the committees, but the caveat is that it has to be integrated, because now there's an expectation that all these are at least recorded, and people, I think under state law, we have until at least the end of the year that people can continue to participate remotely as well. But there will come a point where the remote participation may be taken away, or at least restricted, but then we'll still try to integrate it.
I was going to bring that up as we talked about our next meeting. I was kind of hoping we might be able to do our next one hybrid, if people would feel comfortable. I feel like, it is a little bit sad and shocking that 3 of us have never had an in-person meeting, or 4 of us have never had an in-person meeting. And so I do think it would benefit us, and then potentially the first one with the new people. So I don't know how people feel about that, or we can decide later on as we get closer. The next one is scheduled to be April 10th. So we can check availability and comfort closer to that time if people would prefer.
April 10th is a Sunday.
Okay, that's not the date then.
Is it, or do we do second or third?
We do second Thursday.
So the
I wrote
14th.
the
Oh, the
14th
14th.
based on your
14th.
agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 14th. I can, let me find out if that room that I talked about is available, because I think
Okay.
that would be the only option. So let me find that out. And then we can circulate it around and get people's opinions.
Okay. In terms of, priorities for the coming year, I guess the only thing I would add is I feel like, and to the previous discussion on the bylaw changes, I think we've been trying to engage the community in new ways. And I think a skill in that, and I'm not necessarily even thinking about one applicant over another, but it's an area where I think we can continue to beef up is sort of that community engagement and drawing more people in. We know that there's a lot of interest, and it was really interesting to listen to some of the school building conversations, and there were people who were pushing the agenda on environmental issues that weren't from this committee that we don't know. Robin and I would be messaging and be like, I don't know who these people are, but they were even sort of pushing the agenda farther than we were. And so there's definitely, I think, some interest in town and figuring out how to leverage those individuals and that interest and sort of broaden our tent, I think would be great. And so I think the more that we all, and then new individuals who join us that can help with that, I think would be great. Because we're talking big issues here, and we're talking about really pushing our community. And the more we can have a coalition to do that, I think it would be helpful. All right. Any other thoughts on these questions on our new applicants? All right, then please send me your thoughts, your nominations. You can send me just a list of 4 people. You can send me reasons why, if you prefer. And I will put that together. I will circle back in a way compliant with open meeting laws. And then we'll get that to town council. I think that it's due next week. And so if you could send it to me, say by Sunday, that would be great. And in that list, Susie, if you had thoughts, Tom, if you had thoughts, also, they are very welcome as sort of full participatory members of our community, of our committee here.
I'll send you something, Myra, probably tomorrow.
All right, land conservation, Julie.
I just wanted to bring up that at our last town council meeting, there was a piece of land. The town gets these tax title land every now and then where we take it over because people haven't paid their taxes or it's been in the books for a long time. And sometimes it just sits there and a neighbor says, oh, there's tax land there and it's adjacent to me and I would like to have it, or I'd like to buy it. We don't give it away, but to buy it. And so somebody over off of Green Street came to us and said, we'd really like to take this piece of tax title land over. And usually it comes to the council and the council usually agrees, and the council, and they put it out to bid, and usually the neighbor gets it because nobody else wants it. And it's usually, we're always told it's not a buildable piece of land. And in this case, it's really not, it's almost ledge. And I can give you the exact address, but it's off of Woodland. It's really right on it's like the last house on the Melrose Wakefield line. But I mean, I have to tell you, very early in my town council tenure, there was this little piece of land on a street that was on a corner and it was too small to build on. And the family said, oh, everybody said, we're not going to build on it. And so we sold it to this family for a couple of $1,000s, not very much at all. And honestly, they took every tree off of it and put a fence around it. And so ever since then, I am not so keen on just doing tax title out. And so Ed Dobrowski and I both kind of said, no, we're not okay with this. And we would really like to understand what the, what are the other options? Could we put it in conservation land? Or do you sell it to somebody and put a lot of conditions around it? Apparently there's laws that says like we can only put conditions around things for 30 years. So we've basically said, we put a halt on it, and we've gone back and we said, let's try to figure out what this is. And to me, there's value to having open space, even if it's not buildable, physically buildable, because who's to say somebody kind of wouldn't like go and like blow out. We've seen ledge blown out all over town. So I don't know. That's kind of the long story of what happened, but it's got me a little like thinking like we really need an open space, and things that we've been talking about in this committee for a long time. So
Julie, do you want me to bring up a map? I just quickly brought up the Google
Sure.
map. I just don't know what property it is.
it's oh God.
Although, Julie, are you asking us to talk about this property or just overall ideas
No, I
on
just
how to
wanted to tell
protect
you
it?
what was happening.
Oh,
Like I know Sean
okay.
brought up last time. There was a piece of property that was being discussed, I think, in ZBA or planning. I mean, I think we need to keep our eyes on all of these different, just these different areas. The other
So
thing is that
Julie-
this is right on the Melrose line, and I think we need to go to Melrose and say, do you guys have any planned? Like they might have trails on the other side of the mountain that we could connect to, or I don't know. And we don't have to actually look at it right this minute. Like nothing's going to happen on it. I will let you guys know if it's going to happen or if it's going to come back to the town council, but there's absolutely no rush on it. And honestly, I think the landowner would be just as happy for the town to keep it, because his goal is to not have it, at least, ostensibly his goal is to not have it be built on, or somebody else.
What would happen is the property, could it be turned into green space, or just because you said it's ledge, it just stays as tax property? I guess what's the?
I think those are the things we have to, talk about. Maybe it could take more trees. I don't know, or just runoff, right? We're just with climate change, we're just going to need space for runoff. Or quite honestly, I want somebody to look at Wakefield and to see that there are some green spaces, even if they're not spaces that we can go and have a picnic on, they're at least green spaces where people aren't building.
Do we have some sort of open space requirement in our zoning?
No, but that's part of something that we should really be watching in this new master plan discussion that is going on. We have like a 20-year-old open space plan that probably needs some revitalization that this committee could take up. And I actually did volunteer this committee, by the way. So after it came up, I said, yeah, we have a committee that's looking at open space. And, I think it's something that if that committee is willing to take it on, could look at it and could, see whether there's any. I will say it went through the town process, right? Conservation Commission looked at it and said they didn't need it. DPW. So all departments look at these things and say, should we dispense with this land, or are we going to need it someday? And they all said we don't need it. But need is very different definition, right? So nothing's going to happen quickly. We did not take a vote on it. We're not putting it up for sale. There were some counselors who wanted to put up for sale and then decide. I guess having chair, I get a little bit of a say. So I was a little worried about like exercising people to buy it, and if we don't have an intention of selling it. So it just got tabled, but it's something that we need to keep our eye on.
And so first of all, thank you, Julie, for doing that. It caused a lot of excitement in our house that this was even on the agenda. For me, it also brings up, there's 11 acres on Butler Ave that fits into this, and thinking about, how do we have a voice there potentially? I think that there is, and there's been a lot of talk about sort of micro parks, how can we
Yep.
have a little bit of green space where people can spend some time.
And that's why every time that lot is close to me, every time I walk or run by it, I really get physically ill, because it could have been the cutest little pocket park. So we just need to find those. So I don't know whether it's something the committee wants to take on. I think you're right. Butler Ave is going to be a big issue sooner or later. I think the remediation over there is getting close to done, and that's a beautiful property. The town's going to want to try to recoup some money on it, but I think we spent 2 million on it. It might have a much bigger value if we had a really thought through open space or resiliency or, vulnerability plan.
There's a nice stream back there. I really enjoyed my walk. I encourage people. I don't know when it's going to be open to sort of,
It's
you
town
don't
land.
get
You can
yelled
go
at.
on, nobody's going to
What?
say anything. You can go on there. Nobody's going to say anything to you.
So I really enjoyed my walk back there last year around this time.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to alert everybody to that.
Robin, are you in a place where you can give us an update on some buildings you've been attending to?
Yeah, I'm in the dining room. All right. I'm going to start with the vocational school first. Start with the less good news, and then we'll switch to the Wakefield Memorial. So I say less good news because since we last talked about the Voc, our committee submitted a letter. We actually, with Julie and a few others, rallied our neighbors, and they wrote a letter. So a letter went to their school that had signatures from Winchester, Reading, Malden, Melrose, and Stoneham, all saying, we'd like to learn more about what you guys are doing sustainability, and we want to encourage you and push you to do even more, whatever you're doing, right? And let us know. And we know they received it. I got a response from the head of school, and his response was, oh yeah, we got your letter. We'll do something in April, some sort of meeting, but the process is moving ahead, and we'll bring people up to speed. We'll do some sort of sustainability public forum. And what I'm disappointed to know is that every day that goes by, the designers are proceeding with their project, they're doing cost estimates, and they'll be less open to hearing some ideas for fear that there'll be a cost associated with it. So I'm not giving up. I look forward to attending the meeting, and when if it occurs, I will let everyone know, both in Wakefield and the communities that it served. I should say the letter that was sent was distributed to all participating communities at the Voc. Some communities read it and elected not to sign on to it for lots of reasons, but they are aware of the advocacy, and some said that there was support, they just couldn't sign for lots of reasons. So so things are kind of where they were a couple months ago. Anyone have questions about the Voc? No. All right. Wakefield Memorial has definitely listened to us. Myra mentioned that she and I were in meetings, and we heard we have spoken, and other residents have spoken about ideals and sustainability goals. And so there was the most recent community forum that was last week. They spent quite a bit of time on it. So sustainability, a few of us, Dan, Melissa, and I had a meeting with SMA, the designer, which included their project manager and the director of sustainability, and a representative from the OPM, kind of talking about sustainability that they have included, going all electric, some of the systems in terms of HVACs that they're looking at. They talked about the conversations they're having with gas and light, or I should say just with light, because from a heating and that system standpoint, they are, all electric heating is on the table, which is great. So a lot of positive things. They are still in the study phase. So lots of times to have these conversations, and no real dollars or anything like that. So this is the moment for things. I went as far as questioning things about decreasing surface parking, and thinking about indoor air quality, and the designers we have heard it. They're going to go back and see incorporate, talk about it with their teams, talk it more with the permanent building committee was represented too. Sorry, Julie, got to give a shout out to Tom. So so I thought it was really great conversation. I don't know, Dan or Melissa, if you want to add anything, but they know we're here. They know we want to talk to them regularly. We want updates to show them kind of meeting or, you know, telling us how they progress with these kind of efforts.
Yeah, I thought it was a good meeting. I think that they are receptive. They put together, you know, options, but all the options were kind of in line with our thought processes and so forth and so on. And I think we have, you know, we have some good rapport with them.
Robin, I'm relieved to hear that you feel good about the conversation, because I don't know enough to know when they're saying the things they're saying, like, is that good or is that bad? But you had kind of prompted us on the, you know, kind of the LEED certification, and they, you know, that they want to get to silver. I almost asked the other night, but it was another long meeting, and I was like, I don't know if I want to ask the question why they're going with LEED versus the other kind of,
I can
because
answer that.
you know the answer to that?
I do.
Okay. I'd love to
So
hear it.
it's, well, they may actually be voting on it as we speak, because they're the permanent building committee's meeting tonight. And they actually asked us for opinions, and I talked to a few of them before. They were looking, well, they're likely to go LEED over chips or mass chips for a couple of reasons, and some of it just boils down to they have more experience with it, more communities are doing it, and so there's a economy of scale of doing that system over the chips one. But one thing that was great about the conversation, because I'm less familiar with chips, is that when I looked at chips, there's things in it that LEED doesn't have as a prerequisite or a listed, but LEED has a category in the bottom saying, well, what else are you doing? And you can get credit for doing it. And one of those categories that chips has is anti-idling. Well, this committee has already started talking about why aren't we advocating for anti-idling? So if we, the town, start to doing that, you know, the school would get credit for it. But it would show a synergy of kind of efforts on looking at some operational things. So, you know, had we done chips, you know, that would, I think it's actually a prerequisite or an encouragement, I forget. But so I encourage them to look at chips to see what we can use, especially around the operations. You know, the school committee, and the school department can learn a lot about thinking about how they operate the building after construction as a way to keep what is given them to keep it healthy. And chips does do quite a bit of a little more nudging on that end, but I think that the conversations as the design goes through, the school is going to be forced to have more conversations like that. And I'm sure that happened with the Galvin, you know, but we've seen they've kind of fallen short on a few things. And the first one comes to mind is recycling. The cafeteria has places for recycling.
Not anymore.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, okay. So last time I was in the cafeteria, I saw these lovely, you know, designed, you know, recycling areas, but there was no recycling. And that speaks to the project can give a building, the owner needs to take it over and keep it going and, you know, meeting its, you know, so I think we're in the right direction on those things. So in the end, LEED, chips, it's all letters.
Okay.
Hey,
At least
Susie.
that's my attitude on it.
So in the meeting, the sense that I got was that the leads was kind of the way to go, but that they weren't going to be ignoring chips. They were going to be picking elements of chips that made sense, but that the leads was just an easier way of managing what had to be done.
And that to me is like the best of both worlds, right? Do the one that's kind of easier to manage, but be looking at both to see what makes the most sense for our project. So that's great to hear. I'm going to drop off this meeting as soon as we're done this topic, because it's been a really, really long day and a long week. But I wanted to hear your perspective on this, Robin, because I know how kind of committed you guys have been. I knew you were slated to have a meeting, and I really wanted to just hear from you, because sitting at the table, you know, I can listen to them and kind of the ideas, and we talked a little bit about some of the things that they're proposing, but I really wanted to hear from you guys as to how are you feeling about kind of how it's progressing. And it's a relief to hear that you feel like they're listening, that they're engaging, that they they look to you as collaborators. Like, that's all the things that I want to hear. And it is interesting to hear that the tech school you're not getting kind of that same, it's a bummer, but you're not getting that kind of same experience. So I'm glad to hear with our project that you are. So it's good news.
And Susie, I would add that, whoever is your replacement on this committee, but also just in general to the school committee, they should, if you sit in meetings, you don't know what exactly is being told to you, feel free to reach out to us, sidebar it,
Yep.
And the school committee and the town should understand what you're buying, right? The school is going to have a very hefty price tag, no matter what we do, right? And so the community needs to prepare for that scary number, but we also need to be able to explain the benefits and what you get out of it. And so the more people, ask questions and understand the answers they're given, I think will help with that.
I agree. Yep, I agree. And it may make sense to have you Robin, come in and talk to us just from like the other side of the table, right? Of helping us kind of interpret it. I think, there is incentives to do this in order to get the price down. But I think we also want to make sure, and you've said it to me in the past, like, make sure you're doing the right things. Like, do we really want to do heated sidewalks? Like, I don't think we do. But, and I don't know who would make that call other than the OPM who we've hired to make good decisions. But I think we're supposed to kind of weigh in.
So your OPM is not going to necessarily make that. The permanent building committee is the one who has to bless everything.
Fair.
So the town needs to be communicating to the permanent building committee thoughts on it, but that is the governance that is established, is they're actually the voting members. So
right, I was gonna say, we as school committee members don't even have a vote.
Exactly, but we need to
influence.
The conduits that we have to tell them how we feel, and hope that the committee, that we have is, the right folks, so that what else. So,
but thank you guys, all three of you, for your work on kind of continuing to stay engaged with SMMA, and I'm relieved to hear that they've been kind of open to talking to you, and that's all good news.
They have the skills to give wide range. We just need to tell them which ones to use. And then, so like in our conversation, I made some mention about, red list materials, which is about indoor air quality and safety. And they're like, you guys are thinking about that? And I said, yeah, and they need to know, what they should be, because it's just so much, right? And some communities have different priorities. So I said, no, I think we need to have conversations about, indoor air quality and stuff like that.
Robin, was there
and the
any-
50-year building. I mean, that's whatever, like, think about the 50 years of this building. Sorry.
Robin, sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
Was there any movement on going beyond LEED silver, as we had mentioned?
Too soon. I mean, there wouldn't be any change at this point. We would see it. So, I mean, they took that information on, but we wouldn't be seeing how they would be incorporating something beyond silver yet.
It did come up at the school committee meeting the other night. That question was asked, like, what benefit, was there any financial benefit to going above a silver, which it did not seem like there was.
You mean from MSBA money, or just
for
cost
points
of the project? MSBA, no, there's no additional incentives from that standpoint. There could be what you do to get those number of points could have benefits from life cycle costs and so forth. But so, that's where the points get dangerous to talk about, because really, what's the data behind it? So, you could, I mentioned in the meeting, Saugus is the first MSBA project to go platinum, which is the highest level. It is not a community you'd associate hitting that the first, right? I mean, in terms of demographics, economics, the whole 9 yards. And I'm so excited that they were the first, because it does break the stereotypes. So that, there's so many differences and similarities between all the communities. You can't just say, well, if they got it, we got it, because the point system rewards you for things that we can't do because of physical location of the address of the school.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they didn't prove some things are doable, based on the confines of the project. So, Tom,
I was just going to ask about if we're going for more than silver, so that answered the question. Thank you.
we told them to define ways to try to do it, but like I was just starting to say, like there's a whole category on site selection. Because of its location, there's just points that aren't available no matter how much unless we start building a bus system, we start building, you know, the town library, a bookstore, a bank. Like it being in a residential area keeps a lot of point opportunities off the table. So, you know, if we don't achieve platinum, you know, it's only because that, you know, our baseline, you know, you take all the credits and you take some things off because they're just not on the table for us. So if it was a completely blank slate, where's the you know, where's the project and all that stuff, that's a whole different conversation. And that's not Metro Boston.
Okay, I just want to add, I don't know if everybody knows it, but I've been working on a letter both to the Wakefield High School and the tech. And I'm just starting to get all of that. And it's going to hopefully let both organizations know where we stand and what we're looking for and so forth. And I'm trying to engage everybody in this. So, you know, more on that later, but I expect to have the letter probably in about, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully I can get everybody to, yeah, I'll send out a draft and see if I get some good comments back, and then draft a letter and then get it accepted and then send it.
Great, thank you. Robin, do you want to roll right into the updates to the stretch code?
Sure. So had I given the update 2 days ago, I actually would have had a different answer. So I fresh off a state meeting of updates. So they are in the process of public hearings on the building code. We're in what we call the 9th edition. The 10th edition has been in draft form for years. COVID kind of threw the wrench. But with the governor leaving, that actually is giving them a great, igniting them to try to wrap up things. So from the building code standpoint, expect some public meetings this fall. On the stretch code, which is a different legislation, Department of Energy Resources, DER, also is going through their revision. And that's the DER's stretch code is dealing with the opt-in for net zero and just, you know, raising the bar on stretch. The public comment on their draft document closed this past Friday. The next step is that they are going to look at all the comments and then have meetings to decide which comments they think they want to incorporate in their next draft. And they also hope to have it finished by the end of the year in order to keep it under this administration, because the minute a governor changes, you know, lots of things change. So looks really promising.
And do you have a sense of, I mean, you said the last stretch code was not very stretchy.
Yeah, no, that they are, yeah, they're adjusting it as other rules have increased in order to keep it stretchy. So Wakefield, because we adopted the stretch code, will automatically have the new stretch code apply to them, and you have to opt out if communities feel that it's too much for them. This would be this. So if this passes, is the third time it's adjusted from the first version to the second version, no one left. But, you know, we'll see what happens with the future one. And then in case just legislative in general, I'm sure people have heard about Brookline and their efforts to actually stop gas installations on new developments. And the state keeps saying, no, they can't actually do that. So there are bills in the legislature to allow communities to do that. So the person who gave us the update had no sense of, he didn't share any sense on how likely that is to come and go, but what they are talking about is having a pilot program for some communities to do this. So it wouldn't be an all out communities can do it. They kind of want to see what happens. I imagine if they do a pilot program, Brookline will be in first in line to apply it. And then potentially even Lexington next, because they both have, you know, had those already kind of queued up as, you know, goals of theirs. So.
Just on that, Robin, and welcome anyone to come to the next Gas and Light board meeting, but going on the agenda is a discussion of expanding our gas moratorium to single family homes. So as you know, currently the moratorium is multifamily, but we should be discussing that issue at the next meeting. So anyone wants to come and make a comment, we always welcome citizen participation.
Great, thank you. So we're getting pretty late. I'm cognizant of time. So the upcoming public events, I put on the Master Plan Advisory Committee, which I am on, is having a public session on April 6th. And this one is on sort of open, I think it's April 6th, is on sort of open spaces and land use. And so that one especially, I think, you know, if people are available, would be really great to have perspectives on that. I think it's at
April 6th, it says here. 6:30.
6:30. Thank you. And so this will be the first of the public sessions. There's going to be 4 public sessions over the course of the year. So I can't speak to how they have gone. And I missed the last meeting of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, but I do think it will be an interesting discussion. They're also working on a survey to get out to community members around issues of land use and green spaces and related sort of topics on that. So I will make sure that you all get the survey when it comes out, but also if you have time on April 6th, or if you know others who might be interested, help us get the word out. That would be great. The other date to put on your calendar is town meeting. Even without our bylaws on the agenda, I really encourage people to attend town meeting. I don't know, Julie, I know there was an issue around zoning or building within 50 feet of a street that was potentially going to come.
No, that didn't go. No,
okay.
That's a one-off. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
There's a lot of background issues to that, so no. So that's not coming. But town meeting has been changed. I think originally we voted for May 9th. It's May 16th now.
Okay.
So people know it's a Monday night.
So always a thrilling time. And
Calvin.
And Robin, Sustainable Middlesex Carbon Countdown.
Yes, so there's a group out there called Sustainable Middlesex, which refers to, I guess, Middlesex County. When I see the list of communities joining it, it all seems to be Massachusetts and Middlesex. Anyway, so they are doing a Zoom presentation this Saturday morning that I thought people might be interested in. And it starts with hearing from State Senator Mike Barrett about the current status of climate legislation. There's also going to be a presentation by a woman named Natasha Julian about a program in California about reducing emissions and increase resiliency in her community. And then there's breakout sessions under the umbrella called Reach Beyond the Choir. And the goal is to see, like, if people on this call are considered the choir, how do we reach beyond it? And it's everything about Eco Week to how to do community events to reach larger crowds and things like that. So I learned about it. I thought I'd share it with the committee. So if folks are interested, I can send you the Zoom link on how to sign up free, and have a good Saturday morning.
I was planning on joining that.
I'm signed up for it too.
Great, thank you. I'm wondering if we can get quick updates from, and Melissa, I don't want to, I know you have exciting news, so can you kick us off with sort of a quick update on waste reduction?
Yes, we started recycling at the Galvin this week.
Woo!
Thank God. It has been going well. I was there a couple lunch periods this week, educating students and making sure everybody knew the rules of what goes where. The bins seem to be filling up pretty fast. So Anne helped us get some more bins right away. Thanks, Anne. And so we're just kind of working on education right now, and we're also looking at the paper recycling that may not have been going on in the classrooms. So we're also looking into what's going on with paper recycling. But in the cafeteria, the recycling of plastic containers and such is now happening.
Great, that is a big accomplishment. Thank you so much. And it's not easy in the schools now to get things going. So it's remarkable.
Yep, we're going to be moving on to getting the composting back in the elementary schools.
Great.
And I've been working with Cheyenne, who's been on this call before. She's been a good big help, and also Andy Bray.
Great. And I know Cheyenne was having some conversations on food rescue. There's been a couple hiccups. I think I have to reconnect with her on getting that re-going, and some concerns among the food service staff in the schools around safe handling of food, etc. So, but I'll reconnect with her and see if we can help get over those hurdles.
Yeah, she's still trying to push forward, but yes, there's definitely lots of hurdles and concerns.
Sean, any update on the land use?
No, not really. We haven't met. One of our outgoing members has not been available and had a leadership role in that, and I'm very happy to reconvene on that, see if how we can revitalize that. I will be at the Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting. I registered for that, and I just double checked that was in my calendar. Myra, I don't know if you had anything to add to that, but yeah, we haven't met as a subcommittee since holidays.
Yeah, I think we just need to circle back on that and really figure out what our next steps are. And maybe that's not one that sort of we wait for new members to see whether it's sort of an ongoing priority. I think we sort of were weighing sort of what's the risk. But I think, to your point, Julie, there is some potential and some things to really watch as we think about how do we make this a higher priority or a consideration in a way that it hasn't been.
I think the issue Julie raised was really on point. The thing that I've mentioned before, I just feel like compared to some other communities, I feel like we don't have a lot of awareness of what the resources are in terms of recreation and getting into open space and the like. And I think even many people in Wakefield go into neighboring towns to use spaces. So kind of some of that kind of public education and checking in on stuff is a personal interest to me, if others agree. But maybe waiting until we have the new appointments to revitalize that would be the easiest starting point. But otherwise, I'm happy to try to convene a separate meeting before then, if there are things to discuss.
The other issue I wanted to circle back on that was I talked to the Conservation Commission at the fall of last year, because there's a trail that was in pretty bad disrepair. And I think it's sort of not something that they do. They were sort of like the Boy Scout. This is the trail on Audubon Road, which goes into Reedy Meadow. And it floods, and it's just so there's a partnership with the Boy Scouts. It just sort of seems like we don't have an answer for who maintains our trails. And so that's another issue I think that's worth putting on the table of thinking about. Are we making the most of maintaining the resources that we have?
I know we're going late. Yeah. Just piggybacking on that, that's interesting. So tomorrow we're doing a walking tour of Wakefield to look at kind of bike and pedestrian routes. MAPC is doing a comprehensive study. I hadn't even thought about them looking at trails on top of that. So I'll see if that can be part of their scope as well. It's interesting. And if anybody wants to come on a walk around Wakefield, it starts at noon at Town Hall. And we're going to kind of walk North Ave and Farm Street areas.
When is that?
It's at 1 tomorrow. Did I say noon?
Oh,
It's at 1 tomorrow in the middle of the day. I know.
I have a work meeting at noon.
I'm taking much of the day off tomorrow for town stuff.
I want to do that. Okay, our student representatives, I think we're not able to join tonight. I'm hoping they're all like getting into college, which is very exciting. Susie was not able to join. So Green Communities, is there any?
Just super quick, we're bringing it back for final approval in May. Some of that's just elections because we have to have 2 votes in school committee and they are going to switch over. So we're going to do it early May and then we should be done.
Great. The plastic and styrofoam.
Yeah, the only update with that is we now have a page on the ESC website, on the town website for where the bylaw information is, and also the list of waivers is now up there as well, so people can see which businesses have waivers, which I believe are up in June. So I've been waiting to hear back from Erin Kokinda on where she's been with the reaching out to businesses and helping them transition. I haven't received anything back, but yeah, I was happy to see that the Galvin doesn't have styrofoam trays at all. So that was a good thing.
So remind me, what's the policy if someone's not on this list, what's the next step on talking to them about, hey, reminder, there's this policy?
I would send a note to Erin Kokinda. And that's what I've been doing as I see them and say, can you go talk to them?
Gotcha.
But it's not clear if she has been talking to them.
No, it's not clear. She's on vacation, I think, this week, but
it's really up to Steve
Steve's the enforcer.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So copy Steve. It's the town administrator is the enforcer. We probably should have put this under public health or under Board of Health, which we can look at some point, but yeah, they're not everybody's complying by a long shot.
And has anyone well, maybe it's when they come up for their license, just to remind the farmers market falls under this, and then you need to make sure all their vendors. So would each vendor need to apply, or does the market have to apply because they're the ones who have the relationship with the town?
I don't know, but we'll figure that out. They're coming to us, I think they're coming to us sometime in April.
Okay.
I'll ask.
I mean, the farmers, the produce bags are okay, which is what they do, but then they put the produce bags in other bags. So that's where they have to stop.
Julie, any other updates from town council?
No, be quiet.
Tom?
Just 2 quick ones. The solar projects at 40 North Ave are moving forward. One is for the municipal building there, so for gas and light, leading the way, and the other will be part of the community solar project. Still working on the mechanics of that. Also, we got a report on the gas moratorium for the multifamily and around the CO2 emissions and the savings of having that moratorium in place in the comparison to a heat pump. So it was all normalized for 1,000 square feet per unit. And so the gas consumption for a year would be 256 cc on that normalized 1,000 square foot, which on today's bill, that would equate to $521 in gas. The equivalency for a heat pump for that same 1,000 square foot unit to heat it is 810 kWh. That equivalency on last month's rate would be $45 to operate that as well. more importantly for this committee, that saves normalizing for 1,000 units that are 1,000 square feet. We are saving in emissions of 829 metric tons of CO2, which is a 59% savings for that. So the CO2 from natural gas would be 1,403 metric ton, and the electricity would be 574 with our portfolio that we have today. So there's just great numbers to see the impact of that from both the operational savings and a carbon output. So, we also did some equivalency numbers. So that's like taking 180 passenger vehicles off the road for a year.
Wow. That's great. Thank you. Anne, any DPW updates?
I was able to get the MWRA filling station to come to the festival at the lake. So that's booked. And then I do know it's going to be at 2 other events in Wakefield. It'll be at the Greenwood Gallop and the Farmers Market Chamber August event.
Cool.
And that's all.
Great. So the next meeting is April 14th, like we said, and we'll see if we can do that as an in-person option. Any other matters not anticipated? All right, a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
Tom,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you. This was a long meeting and I apologize for that. But it
Great
really
job, Myra.
great, really great conversation. So thank you all for like incredibly hard work to keep this moving forward.